agenda item number 7. So geothermal, if anybody's here for geothermal, we do plan on going for it. And if it's okay with the commission, we're just going to go on through until we're done with our whole agenda items. If we need to be somewhere at any time, we need to leave at a certain time. Okay, with that said, thank you everybody for coming back. Can we bring the applicant forward, please? Any applicant representative? Is Shin right here? Shin, is she here? Is there a can we come up to? And I think this is where you would. So if you can just raise your right hand. Do you affirm and swear to tell the truth in front of the Board of Planning Commission today? Well, our commission, we have a whole bunch of issues that we'd like to just talk to you about, and please respond. You can speak out of turn, and whatever is appropriate is fine. And commissioners are welcome to ask as they want. Traffic. So can you state your name first and where you reside?
My name is Paul Rowell, principal for Paul Rowell Associates.
Okay, from your professional expertise, is there anything else on traffic that can be done, or whatever results you have that you'd like to share with us?
Sure.
Regarding traffic, please speak in the microphone.
Yes, I'm sure you're about traffic, such as additional mitigation.
What do you think about cumulative traffic in regards to the other developments that are just recently improved, the 100-bed Regency facility of Kaumana, there's other.
When we did this traffic study, keep in mind it was done 4 years ago, 2006. Excuse me, 2010. 3 years ago, these related projects, the Regency and so forth, were not before us. We didn't know about them. So obviously, they're not included in the background forecast. What I did do, since I didn't have any specific projects, I added a background growth rate to the traffic volumes along Kaumana. And it's pretty typical if you don't have specific projects, traffic is going to increase over time anyway. So there's a 1%, I believe, background traffic growth, which resulted in a growth rate of about 12–13% between now and the design of the project. So we did the best I could to compensate for any smaller projects that would go in the area. I know there's a question about the study area, and the reason study area was limited to what it was, that's consistent with the other traffic studies that I've done and I've seen for that area. It's not the first project I've done along Kaumana. However, if we had gotten, or if I had received comments during the review of the draft from planning, public works, police, traffic, the study area would have been amended to include those intersections. The fact is, we didn't get any comments about the study area.
I have a traffic question. So would you agree that maybe the traffic study is outdated?
Let me answer it another way. Typically, even typical traffic study, if any counts are over 2 years old, you update the traffic study. Okay. And there are exceptions to that. If you're in an area where there's been no growth, no change, where you can document that, then they will, the reviewing agencies will accept older counts. But even DOT, they update all their traffic counts every 2 years.
Thank you.
Shin. design process of the development, we all know there's one primary exit off of the issue to get in there. I don't know if you can answer this question, does DOE require a school to have an emergency in the event of a natural disaster or a hurricane or something? Do you need to have another exit out of the whole development out of the school?
I'm not aware of that. I don't know what the charter school is required to adhere to as far as
The DOE standards apply to schools that are constructed for the Department of Education. We look at the DOE guidelines, but we are not bound to follow those guidelines. We use them just in helping us to make decisions on the property. So because the state is not paying for these facilities, and this is not a DOE school. Charter schools are separate from the Department of Education.
Another issue that I have with this project is, this is a school and it is subject to prevailing wages. So during the construction part of this project, it's going to get pretty expensive. And the DOE doesn't give money to facilities, and CBES has to come up with all this money, and they have to build according to what it's designed for. And this is going to be a silver LEED project, or even more expensive, a gold LEED project, or even the most expensive, a platinum LEED project, which I would assume it would have to be to achieve the 4,200 water credit. So it's going to get really expensive, and that is a concern that I have for the cost of the project.
Well, this is why we are doing the project in phases, because we do have a fundraising organization working on Oahu and on this island, and we have raised funds, some funds, to get to the point where we are. We've also been working with the U.S. Department of Education, and for the first time in the state, for the first time in their history, they have looked at the census tract in making a decision whether we could access rural development money for this project. At first they said only Hilo can access, or Hilo cannot access rural development money. But when they looked at the census tract, they said this census tract shows that this area is considered rural. So we are eligible for long-term low-interest loans from the USDA.
Is Connection eligible? Is CBES eligible to receive money from private funds like
Yes.
Marino Bill 8
Yes.
by the Chin Foundation, or
Yes.
and do you have a grant writer on staff, or does CBES have a grant writer on
We
staff?
have consultants that we're working with. We're working with Barry Shane.
Any commissioners have any questions? Please feel free to get all our concerns out.
I just have a comment. Did you just say that the USDA is willing to provide funds because that particular land is considered rural?
That census tract is considered rural, based on the population of the area, based on the population of the census tract.
Okay, so then that I could not understand with all the hearings that has happened and with all the information that has come through, why Connection School, if you think you're a great school that provide much needed service to the children of this island, why are you so set on this site when there are other sites available and more perhaps conducive to meeting your needs? Now, I just heard something that I didn't know before. That's something that I think should also be considered.
Did you want to respond?
No.
same lines, wouldn't you rather be in a, you know, you say the build out's gonna take 10 to 25 years, is that, I've read that?
It could take.
Okay, wouldn't you rather be in an area where the surrounding community could grow with you for 10 to 25 years?
We have identified this site, we've invested a considerable amount of money into this site, and we feel that this is the best site we can get to fit our needs for the programs that we are doing and would like to expand.
Can I ask you, what's your current enrollment?
Our current enrollment is 350 students.
That's both campuses put together?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any more questions for the applicant? No? Other than that, okay, can I bring, you guys can I bring up Mr. Fouquet? Again? Thank you for coming up. Okay, from someone in the community, I just wanted to ask somebody in that community, on any given day, what is the traffic like on a, okay, let's start off with a normal morning. Let's say let's start off with a Friday. Friday, no school, no counties, county is not working. You need to go to work because you have a private business. How's the traffic? I mean, it's flowing. How long does it take you to get from Kaumana down to Hilo?
I think it's not fair to use furlough Friday because the county's going to be off tomorrow, but school still is in operation. So, but like, let's just look at Saturday. Saturdays in the morning, no, it's like every place else. I think the traffic is very benign from my standpoint. If you take like a normal work day, like an AM, I think it was one of the testifiers from the community mentioned that it's a function of like when you leave your home. And if you leave like your home around like 7:15 or so coming down Makaya, Kaumana Drive, you're gonna probably be out to Kaumana Terrace, roughly by 7:15, 7:30. It really gets plugged. I leave a little bit earlier, and so I kind of miss that. So, you know, in terms of like the time delay, as I mentioned earlier in my testimony, you know, you're going to have like level of service A, you know, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, A, B, C, D, but it just relates to how much longer it's going to take you to, you know, get movement in and out of an intersection. It's hard to translate or quantify necessarily the, you know, like the level of impact, you know, as it relates to the residents that have to sustain maybe an additional maybe 100 or 200 or 300% more vehicles over the lifetime, you know, of the project. So that's more perceptual rather than I think something that you can necessarily quantify. That's why I have to use the analogy about like, you know, people saying like, well, you know, that shoe should fit you, you know, but unless you're wearing the shoe, it's kind of hard to figure out because to one person it might not pinch, to another person it's going to pinch. So the community is saying that it pinches, even though the level of service might translate from A to B.
So it's clearly, just want to put on record, it's clear that when Hilo High School started and Isilva started and that school, Kaumana Elementary started, traffic is pretty heavy now that it's time to go to work in the
During
morning.
peak hours, correct.
During peak hours. And with any additional development, with Region C starting to get built up there, possibly connections being built up there, and if there is at least 50, 60 students there, of course it'll, so I put on record that it will substantially increase traffic.
Just the normal growth, you know, you'll have like increased traffic in the area. Regis is a little bit different and largely because their work schedule is such that it doesn't conflict with the AM, PM peak hours. Their schedule is 24 hours, 7 days. So then the first shift comes in at 6 o'clock in the morning. So people coming in like about 5:30, 6 o'clock, and that was the condition that was imposed.
Questions for Mr. Bouquet?
Where would be the most congested intersection? when you compare the entrance and the exit to the school, where would be the most congested intersection?
I'm not a traffic engineer, but just talking from, I guess, just a layperson's perspective, that I think that on the AM peak hour time, I think, you know, like a lot of the side streets between like Evita going all the way down to Hinako Avenue, you probably would have a lot of congestion. I mean, I think it's what was pointed out. If you're on Aifuni Street, trying to make a left turn and get going to Makai, then if you don't have a person with aloha, you're gonna wait for a long time just to get out. And so that applies, I think, so to all of the other intersections that's gonna have to make a left turn heading Makai on Kaumana Drive, whether it's Aifuni Street or Kaumana Terrace. But Irita, you know, going down on Kaumana Drive is pretty much like it's a right turn movement. So, but it's the other streets that's gonna have to sustain additional weight.
How far up the road is Wilder from Anita Street to Wilder, as opposed from Anita Street to here, coming down to the Hinako south?
If I were to just kind of guess, I think like the Evita Street is probably like closer to Wilder Road than it is to Hinako Avenue. Or maybe I could just.
It's about a mile. Might be a little bit more,
So-
because from my house off of Wilder to Kaumana Elementary is just about a mile. And so from Wilder down to Adita would be a similar distance, would be about a mile.
So maybe it's right in the middle.
That's kind of my sense.
You know, fellow commissioners, you know how they do for Hilo Life, we're all used to it, right? You know, Wainui Avenue, right? When I was younger and I used to drive early in the morning, I used to try and take that after, and the cops are stopping me. You know, it's just something to think about. I know it's far-fetched, but kind of putting it out there. Thank you. So, if any commissioners want to get any more information, now's the time. Before we make a motion.
I would like to ask, Mr. Thatcher.
Can you please come forward? And we can, commissioner will meet here.
At this juncture, would Connection School consider looking for an alternative site?
No.
Is there a designated spokesperson for the Kaumana community?
Okay, would you be comfortable?
I just a few sorry, especially.
And Ms. Novak, if you want to come up forward, you're more than welcome to. Commissioner Moses?
Is there any way that the Kaumana community would be willing to work with the Connection School to try to mitigate the concerns of the community, address them, and come to some?
I'll have to defer that. As I mentioned, I've been kind of like more just providing, you know, land use advice.
As Alan said, we did go to the community meeting with Mr. Boyd and was extremely disappointed. Although he opened with, you know, we're open to suggestions from the community, none of the suggestions were really given a second thought. Essentially, he told us, well, the county doesn't tell us that we need that, so we're not going to do it. That's not being open to dialogue. So if that's how they feel, then we're not open to dialogue either. One of the other things that came out was trust. There is a lot of mistrust based on what we've heard so far from the school and what the school has actually done. And frankly, there's no aloha here, period. I sent out a survey to all the people that I have email addresses for.
92% of the respondents said that they do not trust Connection School and they don't want to work with them, period. That's how bad the blood has gotten between us. Thank you. Sorry, one more time. Sorry. When you have the school taking out a TRO against one of the community members, that's not true.
That's not accurate. That's not accurate.
Commissioners, do you need any more information? Not ready to entertain a motion. Madam Director, would you like to interject before we get into it?
I was gonna say that, neither side has, I think necessarily put its best foot forward. I don't know, I wasn't gonna mention it, but since you mentioned the TRO, if somebody put a sign up on Kaumana Drive, that's no connections, and the sign says, protect your property from theft and burglary. As if the school is somehow going to subject you folks to theft and burglary in your homes. You know, that sign is right at the intersection of Kaumana Drive, Idaho, and Mohawk Extension. So if there's bad blood, it's going both ways, because I've personally found that sign offensive. I don't know who put it up, but it's basically saying that if you have the school there, that you guys are going to get burglarized. And that hasn't been the discussion here. The discussion here has been traffic, but there's stuff going out that has just exacerbated. So I can understand why people in the school community are concerned. I understand why the community is concerned because of potential impact. But this just started getting a little bit out of control. And it's highly unfortunate, okay? The charter schools started because a lot of people felt they weren't getting adequately serviced for their children in the public schools. Okay? So the state legislature responded, created a mechanism through which parents could create charter schools. And they seem to be extremely popular. And they seem to be doing for some members of the community and some students in the community, providing some niche that they weren't able to get. Unfortunately, in this case, what we have is, I don't think this was the best site. I think that, I don't know where the site selection or the state, I really wish that this had come to us with a better site. I wish you had a site that traffic on Kaumana wasn't an issue. I wish you had a site where water wasn't an issue. And it's kind of exacerbated as we've gotten along, and that's really unfortunate, because I believe that Connections is a good school and it has a good program. I understand one of the issues for the community was that I think they might have been more receptive if there had been some kind of belief that kids who lived in the community would be able to go to Connections. My understanding is that that's not a given. So even kids that were in the community, if you could walk to school, and there's a benefit to the community. But if you don't have that kind of benefit to the community, that the children who live in the community are going to have some opportunity to go there, then you're not likely to get some support from people in that area if they don't think the kids can go. That's just one of the many issues. I'm just saying that for any future schools, what happened here was not the way to do it.
Thank you, Madam Director. Would you like to say something, Ms. Hilo?
Yes, to help Ms. Moses.
I've been tasked by the nonprofit, and I continue to be hopeful and show up as my best self and listen and hear what the community is saying and translate that into conditions of approval that help support their concerns. To reiterate what the director has said, there's been a number of hiccups along the way, and a number of things that could have been done a little differently. I know that my duty here going forward is to continue to show up as my best self, continue to try and engage. And I know for me, my duty to the nonprofit is to continue to have an open door with the community and try and engage them to build bridges.
You see that?
I appreciate that, and it was quite obvious in your testimony and the conditions that you put together after that community meeting, so I want you to know that it is definitely acknowledged. Thank you.
Ready to entertain a motion again?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to introduce a motion to deny special permit application 12-138 Connections New Century Public Charter Schools / CMES. My reasons being traffic, multiple traffic concerns, water, and lastly, I just don't think it's a proper use of the land.
Okay, do we have a second? Third. Discussion. Okay, Ms. Lilo, you can answer. Okay, Ms. Lilo summed it up in her last few sentences. She's, regardless what she's feeling, us as a commission, we need to focus on what we're here for. So I'm going to refer, from this point on, as we go through this discussion process, I'm going to refer to our jobs here as a commission. Connections is a great school, great thing. It's a great charter school. We hear a lot of good things about it. The community is not happy. Those are the facts. Right? Connections is a good school. The community does not want it. We are here to represent our communities in a land use plan. Okay, so we need to strongly consider our community, which is our job. I'm not saying first and foremost our job is land use, but our job is to look at every application and see, is it proper? Is it appropriate? And we take into consideration, part of it we take into consideration what the community feels. So, I am on the fence on this project. I think development is inevitable. There's development coming up all around us. Okay, we've got Walmart. When Walmart was built, everybody was against it. People petitioned it, people didn't want it, everybody goes it. Change, development, I think goes hand in hand. It's not easy to swallow. Okay, community, so don't get me wrong, if it was in my backyard, I wouldn't be too happy with it either. But our jobs as a commission, we have to do our jobs. That's why we're appointed for these positions. So keep that in mind.
I'd like to say a few things too. And again, no one's against the school, no one's against the children. My son graduated from a charter school. It was a wonderful thing for him. I just think we're in the wrong spot. And we need to look for another one, and we'll all still be here to help you with that. We talked about this when we were in session. No matter what we do here today, half of you aren't going to be happy with us. So we all feel that. But we do have to move on. We've got to get this off our agenda. We've got to get it to wherever it needs to go next. And I think that's where we're at. That's where I'm at.
I would like to hear what my fellow commissioner who lives in that district has to say about this particular application. Commissioner Ono?
I'm not sure that I qualify. I live about a mile away.
but I live in Lower Kaumana.
I believe that's your district.
Yeah, it is.
Subdivision in your district, so yeah, I'd just like to hear what you have to say.
I'm not immediately impacted by this proposal. I've got to admit, I live just slightly above Kaumana Terrace. And a couple of times in a year, I do catch some traffic, and it's right below my house. So traffic is a problem. So with this addition, I would suggest that traffic would be heavy coming down Kaumana. I've been retired for some 12 years now, so I'm kind of out of the loop, so to speak, regarding the traffic problem. I've seen through traffic and so I really can't respond to the concerns about traffic as that impacts me. But while I was working, I did have to leave much, much earlier to get to work.
Madam Chair. Just one comment, a couple comments. Yeah, said state of affairs when we reach at this level, we can see eye to eye on the issue. But I think this was done improper from the beginning. We came in with the state approving this thing without even talking to the community. We respect our communities and what they have to say. And that process, and time and again, this commission has always relied on the communities. To circumvent that and allowing permits to go in place before the process takes place, which I was trying to correct that earlier today, I'm putting in conditions where we meet with the community first before we even put up the sign and invite them out. So it's important that we get into that discussion and change that opportunity to allow more community input prior to allowing any type of permit to take place. So it's lesson learned. And again, we're not on Kaumana Commission. It's not us. It's not us. We're not here for Kaumana. We're here for the Hawaii. We're here to recognize everything that goes on in planning in this county, and we're just taking care of the side. But we respect all communities, so we don't belong to Kaumana. So I'll put that out straight. My main concern is the water. You know, the water is very important. We've got to get the necessary water. So how are we going to limit the enrollment in the school based on water? I cannot even, we've been doing something. Cannot limit participation in school based on our allocation of water. That's not right. That's not supposed to be. We plan one development, let's do it right. With the proper water that we need to complete the whole project. Traffic is another thing. It's so close in and out, with only one entrance, one exit, that's not right. So I think we'll be better when we planning these things to have the proper entrance and exit in these facilities. We plan big and plan proper when we get the thing done right. Again, we're gonna see this healing process take place. Thank you all for participating. It's important that you all participate in the process. Nothing about the school is great. Curriculum is there. Any way we can reach our children and have them want to learn, that's what it is. Want to learn, want to participate and learn and get educated, that's what it's all about. Connection does that. It does provide that connection to the minds of our youth, so that's so important. Again, thank you guys for being part of the process.
You know, I'm surprised that the DOE even approves catchments. You know, I live on a catchment system. I don't drink the catchment water. I drink bottled water, and you know, and I treat my water good. I take real good care of it, but it takes a lot of time. But on the same token, you know, up Mauna Kea, people bring up water all the time. Okay, there's places out there people bring in potable water, and it's safe to drink. But I'm just surprised that the DOE even allows it at any school. I wouldn't want my child to be washing his hands at, let's say, Connections, and that particular bathroom is not hooked up to the county water, and he's washing his hands, and you know, he's 5 years old and he gets thirsty to drink that. Okay, and right now we have all this food stuff going around in Lima. You know, I mean, potable water a difference between potable water and drinking water. It's very important to have safe water for our kids. So I'm very surprised that the DOE allows that. Another thing that I want to talk about is, what our Madam Director is saying. Something went wrong from the start, and this is from this application, we're going to move forward on any charter school that comes in front of us. And this is not the way to do it on both parties, community as well as the applicant. And I'd like Commissioner Gonzalez to, if he could clarify in his motion, what is the improper use of the land? Just for the record, please.
I think the use of land is improper, number one, because there's no water. There's not enough water. We have no idea how much we're gonna need, how many kids we're gonna have. So we can't really, come to any kind of resolution on water. Traffic, it's a bad use of the land because this is gonna create too much traffic. Not only on Evita and Melimanu, but all up and down Kaumana Drive. Only one exit in and out of the school, I'm not comfortable with that. But if there's a fire, a medical emergency, or if the ambulance can't get up Kaumana Drive, I don't think it's proper use of land. At some point, just a while ago, I don't even remember what Commissioner Moses said, but someone has also deemed this as rural land. Again, we don't need a 400 student school in the middle of this rural agricultural neighborhood. Clear enough?
Yes. Okay, so the process that we're going to take right now is we're not voting on this. Okay, we made a motion to deny, and it was seconded. We went through a discussion, and now what's going to happen is our planning department and our corporation councils are going to have to come up with findings and facts of conclusion of law, and they're going to report back to our commission next meeting if time allows us, and then we vote upon it. They're going to get together the information based off of the denial, and then we vote. Please take over.
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is based on the 4-22 of the Planning Commission rules, also Hawaii Revised Standard Statutes 91-11. Also, the proposed decision is going to be served on the parties, or actually on the school and the applicants, and they will have an opportunity to file exceptions and present arguments to the commission based on that. So then you will be able to take your vote. So we'll have to set the time frame for that. I'll work with staff on that.
Staff, can we get a time frame now, or is it something we can work after? Just for our records, just so we know.
Okay, your next meeting is February 7th. Following that will be March 7th. So in order for us to prepare draft findings of fact, conclusions of law, and then allow more appropriate time for rebuttal by the parties, morning February 7th might be pretty tight. So my recommendation, only if you all agree, would probably be to look at March 7th, which would give us enough breathing room to prepare the draft findings and allow for the parties to rebut.
Okay, is the applicant prepared to possibly try and make the February meeting, or do we have to? Do you think there's time to make the February meeting, or do the March meeting? And consult with our corporation counsel to see if he can get it.
Mr. Chairman, and can I throw this in there too? You've only got 2 more meetings left, correct? If we replace him, we may need to start this all over again. So keep that in mind.
From my understanding, understanding, the reason why we cannot vote on this today is because in the past two meetings, Commissioner Moses was not here the last meeting, and the meeting prior in November, Commissioner Ishibashi was not here. So if we were all here, we could vote on it. But because they weren't here, what we need to do is we need to come up with the findings and facts and a conclusion of law.
If I'm hearing you correctly, the concern is that all the commissioners may not have had an opportunity to fully review the minutes of the meetings that they missed. And therefore, before they take a vote on a matter, they need to review that and put that on the record, that they have fully read the entire record. Is that correct? Is that what they're going here?
Is that correct? Corporation Counsel?
Let me just read the rule. It says, whenever commission members who are to render the final decision have not heard and examined all of the evidence, the decision, if adverse to the party to the proceedings, shall not be made until a proposal for decision containing estimated reasons and including determination of each issue or factor are necessary to the proposed decision, in this case it would be a denial, has been served upon the parties, and an opportunity has been afforded to each party adversely affected, without exceptions, and requiring the commission members who are to render the decision. We shall personally consider the whole record or such portions thereof as may be cited by the parties. So it seems like the plain language of this rule, which mirrors the HRS, and we know that there are a couple of commissioners who have not been at all of the hearings here, and a denial would be adverse to the applicant. This decision shall not be made until there's a written proposal with findings of fact and conclusions of law served on the parties, and there's an opportunity to respond.
So we're gonna go back, we're gonna work on Corporation Counsel, and the planning department's gonna work on the findings and facts, conclusion and law. We're gonna give the applicant a chance to respond, and we're gonna hear it at our next meeting, and we're gonna vote on the motion to deny special permit.
I just want to clarify, I'm trusting that the conclusions, finding of fact and conclusions of law will be prepared within 30 days of this hearing, Mr. Torgo, or?
Yeah, but that's why we're talking about trying to figure out what's an appropriate date for the next meeting. Whether we can get the proposed findings to the parties in time for them to make a response.
Yeah.
So that was my question to the applicant. Are you prepared? And is our planning department prepared, and our corporation counsel?
From the applicant CBES perspective, I would request at least 45 days. The Attorney General's office, they have their own calendar, at minimum, to review and cite the various land use components and land use laws and regulations. At minimum, we would ask for 45 days.
Madam Director?
I was going to say, rather than specifically setting the March date, let's see how quickly we can get this out and served to the parties, so that if we're 45 days out from March 7th, which gives us 2 weeks, I think, to draft something and get it out and served, then we could do it in March. But there may be an issue with setting it for March if AG's calendar. So what I would suggest is that you direct us to go and prep the findings of fact, conclusions of law, serve it on the parties, and then reach an agreement with the parties on what day it would come back on the calendar.
Mr. Torgoy, the applicant CBES would be agreeable to those outlines with an opportunity to meet with the director, planning department, and yourself, along with the AG's office and Mr.
Okay, so at this point, this is the direction then for us to try and work out a draft and to get it to you guys and see if it's gonna be, if you have time to respond.
That's correct, and maybe even going forward, if we could have maybe like a scheduling conference of various deadlines where we could kind of collaborate on and with the participation of the Attorney General's office, that might be helpful.
I think the concern here is that if I'm hearing things correctly, the applicant probably wants sufficient time to be served the proposed findings of fact conclusions of law, consult with their attorney, and give the attorney time to research and draft the response, and then serve it on the commission in advance of our meeting. And that's why 30 days might not be enough of a turnaround, because they need 30 days in order to file something, in order to give the commission time to read the objections or position of the AG before it's actually on an agenda.
Just information for the public, Commissioner Gonzalez expressed his concern about doing this all over again. I'm on the commission for 2 more months, February and March, and if I was to be replaced, then we would have to give all the transcripts to the new commissioner, and the new commissioner would have so much time, get an X amount of time to review all the information before the commission.
I have a question. Now, if Mr. Rao is here, when this comes back and it's still just the 4 of us, that is enough for us to still vote?
Mr. Torigoy can correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is if we get new commissioners and they read the entire record, the minutes, all of the documents, the testimony, because we have pretty close to verbatim transcript of these proceedings, they can vote on the matter, even though they may not have been here. All they have to do is certify on the record that they have read all of the pleadings, all of the testimony, all of the minutes in the case, and then they can vote. They're going to have a lot of reading to do.
Yeah, that's correct.
So,
so at this point, I guess it seems like we're in agreement that we'll work with the applicants and see if we can get a draft out to you, and you can consult with your attorneys in time to maybe put it on the March agenda, if that'll work.
From our perspective, I'd have to consult with our attorney before agreeing to anything. Honestly, I'd rather have you do the vote right now.
It's really not an option for us right now. So I think we can go ahead and try and work things out and keep in touch with the planning staff, and we'll bring it back on the agenda when it's practical.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, from our perspective, any correspondence, again, timing schedules, conference schedules, or some type of briefing schedule that we can come up with, which would identify specific dates and times for us to respond would be helpful. So, thank you, Mr. Torigoy.
So how is the community involved in this? The community is still going to be able to spawn public information?
Once we come up with a proposed draft and serve it, then it's a public document. They can request a copy of it.
So at this next meeting where this is discussed, will you be taking public testimony?
Yes, they're required to do public testimony at every meeting that we have.
And then just to clarify, Mr. Torigoy, I know that the conclusions, finding the fact and conclusions of law will be made public, but it would only be ourselves and the Attorney General's office who would be preparing rebuttals, correct? Not members of the public, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
However, because it's going to be at a public meeting, members of the public can submit written testimony pertinent to the proposed findings of fact.
Okay, Okay, so we're all good. Well, we're not good, but we're on the same page at least. Everybody understands. Yes. Are we okay? Okay, good. Well, we just move on to the next agenda. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Chairman.